Thanksgiving at Dad's house always felt like walking onto a stage where I hadn't learned my lines. Everything gleamed. The china, the crystal, the forced smiles that never quite reached anyone's eyes. Diane stood at the head of the table with wrapped boxes stacked beside her like trophies. My stepsister Amanda went first, tearing through silver paper to reveal spa vouchers, a designer scarf, and an envelope so thick it could only mean cash. Everyone clapped. Someone said she deserved it. Then Diane turned to me. She didn't wrap mine. She placed a single lottery ticket in my palm and smiled, that sharp smile I'd grown to recognize. "Maybe luck is all you've got left," she said. The laughter that followed wasn't loud. That made it worse. It was controlled, polite, like everyone understood the punchline without needing explanation. Dad laughed too. Not awkwardly. Not to ease tension. He laughed like I'd earned it. My face burned. My hands closed around the paper ticket. I didn't look at it. I folded it carefully and set it beside my untouched plate. As I pushed back my chair, Diane added casually, "And don't come asking us for help after today." That wasn't humor. It was a door closing. I barely made it to the kitchen before Diane followed. Her voice dropped the second we were alone, all warmth gone. "You take everything too personally," she said, arms crossed. "You're 32. Too old to be this fragile." Dad stood by the sink rinsing a plate that was already clean. He didn't look up once. Diane kept talking about responsibility, about embarrassment, about how exhausting it was for Dad to keep defending me. Each word landed like a stone. Behind her, Amanda leaned against the counter. Her phone angled low, screen glowing faintly. She was recording. That realization hit me harder than the insult at dinner. This wasn't just mockery. It was documentation. I grabbed my coat and walked out without saying goodbye. The November air bit at my face, but it felt cleaner than staying in that house another second. My hands shook so badly that my thumbs scraped the lottery ticket's edge. Gray coating flaked away. One number matched. I stopped walking. Scratched another. Then another. I stood on the sidewalk staring at symbols that refused to make sense. All 6 numbers matched. I scanned the ticket once on my phone. Then again. The lottery app didn't hesitate. Winner. My knees buckled. I sat hard on the curb while cars passed, and someone laughed down the street. The world kept moving while mine collapsed into that single word. I told myself the app was wrong. A glitch. A mistake. So I called the lottery helpline. The woman confirmed each number, then paused when she saw the prize amount. Her voice changed, more formal, more careful. She congratulated me. Then she said something unexpected. "For your safety, we strongly advise you not to discuss this with anyone until your claim is secured." I asked what she meant by safety. She didn't elaborate, just repeated the warning. After hanging up, I sat there longer than I should have, staring at the ticket like it might dissolve. The humiliation from dinner replayed, the laughter, Dad's face, Diane's casual cruelty. I stood and headed home on autopilot. Halfway there, my phone buzzed. Dad calling. I ignored it. It rang again. And again. By the time I reached my apartment, I had 6 missed calls. I woke to my phone vibrating endlessly beside my pillow. Notifications stacked so thick I couldn't see my lock screen. 78 missed calls. Messages from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Aunts, cousins, family friends. People who never checked and suddenly needed me urgently. One text made my stomach drop. "Diane, we need to talk about the ticket." I hadn't told anyone. That settled in slowly, like ice forming over still water. Someone else had. As I scrolled, a new message appeared from an unknown number. "Congrats. You're not the first person she's done this to." I stared at those words, thumb hovering over the screen. I typed a response, deleted it, typed again. Before I could decide, Dad called again. I let it ring out. Another message followed immediately. "Call me. This is getting ridiculous." Fear crept in then, not about the money, but about what people thought they owned now that I had it. I locked my door. Double-checked the windows. For the first time since scratching that ticket, I didn't feel lucky. I felt hunted. My best friend, Kira, didn't call. She texted one sentence. Have you seen this? The video loaded slowly. Thanksgiving night. Diane standing at the table, Amanda beside her, both smiling. The moment replayed from a different angle.
The gift.
The joke. The controlled laughter. Then the video zoomed in. Someone had paused it. Enhanced it. The lottery ticket's barcode was visible. My chest tightened as realization hit. Amanda hadn't just recorded to mock me. She'd documented the ticket itself. Comments scrolled beneath the video. Laughing emojis. Jokes about me finally being useful. Someone asked if it won. Another person replied, looks like it did.
My phone rang.
This time I answered. Diane's voice was warm, almost maternal. That ticket was a family gift, she said smoothly. We need to be fair about this.
Fair.
The word felt wrong in her mouth. Let's not make this ugly. Come over tonight, and we'll sort everything out. I hung up without responding, hands shaking harder than before. The joke at dinner suddenly felt different. Not spontaneous. Calculated. Dad called before noon. His voice was different now, measured, careful, like negotiating a business deal instead of talking to his daughter.
Let's slow down, he said.
No one's trying to take advantage. We just want to be fair. That word again. I asked him one question. Why now?
Pause.
Because this affects the whole family. Before I could respond, Diane took the phone. Her tone shifted instantly, soft, almost sweet. You wouldn't have that ticket if we hadn't given it to you, she said. That means something. I reminded her she gave it to humiliate me. She laughed lightly. Intent doesn't matter. Ownership does. Then her voice dropped. You might want to check your lease. Things change when people get complicated. The line went dead. I stood staring at my phone, replaying her words. It didn't sound like a threat exactly, but it wasn't accidental either. I walked through my apartment suddenly noticing how quiet everything felt. How thin the walls were. How exposed. They weren't asking. They were positioning. My landlord called the next afternoon. He sounded uncomfortable. There've been complaints, he said.
Noise.
Disruptions. Property concerns. I almost laughed. I worked long hours. Barely had visitors. When I pushed back, he hesitated, then sighed. Someone claiming to be your neighbor contacted me multiple times. Said you've been throwing parties. My stomach dropped. He forwarded screenshots. Amanda. Using a fake name. Pretending to live in my building. Then he said something that made my chest tighten. They offered to cover your remaining lease if I ended it early. After hanging up, I sat on my couch staring at nothing. The Thanksgiving humiliation suddenly felt small compared to this. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about control. That night my key stuck in the lock. I had to force it harder than usual. The door finally opened, but the feeling didn't leave. I checked every room. Nothing missing. Nothing obvious. Still, I slept with lights on. The first thing I noticed was my paperwork folder. It wasn't where I'd left it. I kept it in my desk drawer, lease copies, ID, the lottery app confirmation printout. Not the actual ticket, but enough to matter.
The drawer was closed.
Nothing else disturbed.
Just the folder gone.
I didn't scream. I called the lottery office. When I explained, the woman transferred me to security. He asked calm, precise questions about my family, the video, the harassment. This happens more than you'd think, he said, especially when entitlement's involved. Enhanced security activated immediately. My claim got flagged. Additional verification steps added. I booked a lawyer consultation next. She watched the Thanksgiving video twice, then looked up. They intended humiliation. That matters legally. She told me to document everything.
Calls.
Messages. Screenshots.
Dates.
Leaving her office, I felt watched. Across the street, a familiar car idled at the curb. Diane's. Engine running. I didn't see her approach. I heard her first. Thank God, Diane cried loudly, clutching a pie box. I've been so worried. Neighbors slowed. Someone opened a door. She hugged me before I could react, sobbing into my shoulder. Families fight, but this is too much. I didn't hug back. When I stepped away, her expression changed. Tears vanished like a switch flipped. "You think you're smarter than me?" she whispered. "This doesn't end well for you." Behind her, Amanda stood recording everything. I said nothing. That night, I checked my desk drawer again. Still empty. An email alert caught my attention. Login attempt. Unfamiliar device. Someone tried accessing my accounts. I changed every password. Locked everything down. My phone buzzed with a new message from Diane. "Stop making this difficult. We can still fix it." I stared at the screen, realizing something unsettling. She didn't sound angry anymore. She sounded desperate. And desperation makes people reckless. Next morning, a post circulated online. Amanda had written it carefully, no direct accusations, just suggestions. Words like concerning behavior and sudden money changes. She framed it as worry. People filled in the rest. My lawyer advised silence. Then 2 officers knocked that afternoon. Welfare check. Someone reported I was unstable, possibly dangerous to myself. I let them in calmly. Handed them documentation, screenshots, messages, the harassment timeline. They read quietly. Their posture changed. "This looks like malicious reporting," one said. After they left, I sat shaking, not from fear, but clarity. This wasn't family conflict. This was escalation. I called my lawyer. They crossed a line.
She paused.
Good. That makes things very clear. I looked around my apartment, suddenly aware nothing about my life felt small anymore. They thought humiliation would keep me quiet. They were wrong. The message came from Dad. Family meeting. Tonight. Address attached. When I arrived, the house was full.
Aunts.
Uncles. Cousins I barely knew. People sitting like spectators waiting for testimony. Diane stood near center, tissues folded neatly. Dad hovered beside her, shoulders tense. Amanda leaned against the wall, phone face down for once. I barely sat before Diane began. "Things have gone too far," she said softly. "We're worried."
About me.
She slid paper across the table. Handwritten. Labeled family agreement. Percentages listed neatly. Dad cleared his throat. "After everything we've done, this is the least you can do." I stared at the paper. Not one line mentioned the humiliation, the threats, the lies. Only obligation. When I didn't respond, Diane leaned forward. "If you don't sign, we'll have to explain how you really got that ticket." The room went quiet. I folded the paper carefully and slid it back. "I'm not signing anything." Her smile didn't falter, but her eyes hardened. Fallout came immediately. By morning, messages flooded in, people asking strange, careful questions. Had I pressured Diane? Taken advantage of her generosity? Was my mental health okay? The narrative was set. Amanda posted vague updates about family betrayal and truth coming out. Diane reached out to relatives privately, framing herself as the concerned parent protecting the family from chaos. They never named me. They didn't have to. I watched people who'd ignored me suddenly have opinions. Sympathy flowed toward them, not because they were right, but because they were confident. I saved everything. Screenshots, timestamps, voice notes, because liars always escalate. Late afternoon, I got a direct message from someone I didn't recognize. No profile photo. Just one sentence. "Ask about your grandmother's money." My hands went cold. I hadn't thought about Grandma Patricia in years. Not since the brief conversation after her funeral, when Diane said she'd handled everything. I typed carefully. "What do you mean?" Reply came instantly. "You were supposed to get something. You never did." I called Aunt Helen, the only one who'd been kind to Grandma Patricia. She hesitated when I asked about inheritance, then sighed. "There was money. Not much, but enough to help you start." My stomach dropped. She explained that when I turned 18, Diane convinced everyone it was best for her to manage it for me. I was too young, too emotional. I remembered signing papers I didn't understand, trusting her. Bank records confirmed it. The money had been withdrawn in pieces. Household expenses. Amanda's tuition. Vacations I was never invited on. Then my lawyer traced something else. The lottery ticket had been purchased with funds from that same account. They didn't just humiliate me. They used my stolen inheritance to do it. I sat in my car afterward, gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe through the anger. This wasn't about winning anymore. It was about reclamation. When I confronted Dad that night, he didn't deny it. "I chose my marriage," he said quietly. That sentence hurt worse than everything else combined. I stopped answering calls. Stopped replying to messages. Stopped defending myself. The silence unnerved them. Diane left increasingly frantic voicemails, switching between apology and accusation.
Dad tried logic.
Amanda tried guilt. None worked. 2 days later, police knocked again. Another welfare check. This time, officers recognized my name. I handed them the expanded timeline, harassment logs, false reports, financial records. They exchanged looks. "This is malicious," one said. Documented. When they left, I felt something shift. Fear was gone. In its place, certainty. That night, my lawyer drafted formal letters, cease and desist notices, warnings of legal action, demands for retraction. They went out next morning. Within hours, Diane called crying, real tears this time.
"Please.
You're tearing the family apart." I didn't respond. For the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was controlling the pace. And when control shifts, people make mistakes. Diane tried one last move. She invited me to talk privately at a cafe, public enough to feel safe, visible enough to stage a scene. I agreed, but didn't go alone. When she arrived, she was already crying, loudly, drawing attention, telling anyone within earshot how worried she was.
But something was different this time.
People were watching closely. She slipped, raising her voice, accusing me of being ungrateful, demanding I do the right thing. Someone nearby recorded. The clip spread faster than anything before. And for the first time, comments weren't on her side. People noticed the pattern, the control, the entitlement. Her tone changed when she realized. Later that night, Dad called sounding small. "Can we just fix this?" I told him calmly, "That depends on what you're willing to admit." Long silence. Then he said something that told me everything. "What if we just make it go away?" I hung up, because I wasn't interested in disappearing anymore. My lawyer moved fast. Within 48 hours, formal letters went out, cease and desist, defamation warnings, demands for evidence preservation. Every message, post, recording was now legally relevant. Incoming calls changed tone immediately. Diane stopped yelling. Dad stopped negotiating. Amanda went silent. Then came the counterattack. Dad's lawyer filed a motion claiming the lottery ticket had been purchased with marital funds, therefore belonged to the household, not me. Framed as misunderstanding. Almost polite. My lawyer barely reacted. She pulled bank records, timelines, withdrawal histories I didn't know existed. Showed me how money flowed, from Grandma Patricia's inheritance into a joint account, then out in small, careful transfers. "They didn't just spend it," she said. "They disguised it." For the first time, I saw fear flicker on their side. That night, Dad left a voicemail I didn't recognize. He sounded tired. "This has gone too far. Your stepmom is scared." I deleted it without responding. They weren't afraid of losing money. They were afraid of losing control. Cracks started with Amanda. She reached out privately, breaking weeks of silence. Her message wasn't angry, it was calculating. I didn't know it would get this bad. Mom promised it would be handled. Handled. When I didn't respond, she sent another. Then another. Finally, she admitted it. Diane had promised her a portion of winnings. Told her it was basically theirs. Said I would cave once enough pressure was applied. "She said you always do," Amanda added. That line hit harder than anything else. Meanwhile, extended family started distancing from Diane. Quietly at first. Invitations stopped. Messages went unanswered. Her narrative was collapsing. Dad called again, without anger or authority. "We can still make this right. You don't have to destroy us." I asked one question. Where was that concern when you were destroying me? He didn't answer. 2 days later, my lawyer forwarded something unexpected, screenshots Amanda sent Diane during Thanksgiving. Mocking me. Planning the joke. Calling it motivation. The final meeting was inevitable now. I agreed to meet them one last time. Not at a house.
Not at a cafe.
At my lawyer's office. The room was quiet when they arrived. No audience. No performance. Diane looked smaller than I remembered. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. Amanda sat rigid, arms crossed, jaw tight. My lawyer laid everything out calmly. The harassment, false reports, financial trail, inheritance misuse. No accusations, just facts. When Diane finally spoke, her voice cracked. I was trying to teach her independence. My lawyer slid screenshots across the table. Silence followed. Conditions were simple. Public retractions, written apologies, restitution tied directly to misused inheritance, legally binding no contact agreement. Dad asked quietly, "Is that all?" I nodded, because revenge wasn't what I wanted. Resolution was. They signed. Every page. Diane's hand shook putting down the pen. She didn't look at me once. After the meeting, my lawyer asked if I wanted to pursue additional damages. I said no. Instead, I did something that confused everyone, including her. I created a small fund in my mother's name. Quietly. No press. No announcements. For young adults leaving unstable homes. First month's rent. Security deposits. Legal help when needed. When my family found out, they didn't understand. "You're still giving money away?" Dad asked over voicemail. I didn't answer. Because it wasn't about generosity. It was about reclaiming meaning. They tried turning money into leverage, humiliation into control. I turned it into distance, into closure. Messages slowed, then stopped.
No more demands.
No more threats. Just silence. And in that silence, something unexpected happened. I slept.
Deeply.
For the first time since Thanksgiving, my body wasn't braced for impact. The quiet felt unfamiliar, but I was learning to trust it. Weeks passed. No calls. No messages. No sudden check-ins. My phone stayed silent, and for the first time, that silence felt safe. I replayed Thanksgiving once more. The joke. The laughter. The certainty they had that night that I'd always stay small. They laughed because they thought I'd never win. Not the lottery, but myself. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel bitter. I felt clear. Clear about who I was without their voices. Clear about what I deserved. Clear about what I'd never tolerate again. Money changes things, but not how people think. It doesn't make you powerful. It shows you who was already waiting to use you. As for Diane, Dad, Amanda, I don't know what they tell people now. I don't need to. The last thing Diane ever said to me was, "You didn't have to do all this." She was right. I didn't. I chose to. They handed me a lottery ticket to mock me. I used it to walk away whole.